My name is Richard Rhodes. I work with IBM. I'm the manager for global academic programs for predictive analytics. Analytics is a core part of IBM's go-to-market strategy, which has been exemplified in many avenues, one being the Smarter Planet messaging, the other being the acquisitions that IBM has made over the past 15 years that have been very analytic driven. I think probably the culmination of IBM's focus on analytics has been the creation and deployment of Watson, augmenting decisions through data. The biggest challenge I see in creating analytic capabilities are not necessarily technologically based. It's understanding what questions to ask, understanding a business need, why that business need is a need at all, diagnosing what addressing that business need will do for the business, and then ultimately creating an environment where technology is leveraged to look further into data, but then that data and that output can be communicated in a way that business leaders not just understand, but they can then make decisions on, they can implement. All this data says something about who we are as individuals, what we like, what we don't like, where we're going, who we engage with, who our greater circle is. The age of big data is really just culminating because of how we've communicated as a society. And if leveraged correctly, we can engage more effectively with individuals. Instead of working with masses or working with segments, we can now work and understand an individual and have a more meaningful interaction with an individual, whether that be from an academic standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a health standpoint. There's a lot of things that can be done with that data, and I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. One of the skills that I think is very important that I think sometimes is overlooked is the communication skills of those professionals. Being able to tell a story about data and why that story should matter. Data for the sake of data is data, and technology for the sake of technology is technology. What is needed is someone that can stitch all of those things together. They can stitch the business issue along with the technology, along with the data, to create a quilt that someone can then look and say, okay, I understand that. So what you're doing is not necessarily having an analytic problem and here's an answer. What you've done with the right individuals in place is create an analytic ecosystem that doesn't really end. If anything, it builds on itself over time. It is math at its core, but it's also a lot more than that. And being able to tie in math with understanding some sociological circumstances, as well as then understanding how to communicate that in a way that's compelling, really creates a type of position that I don't think we've seen exist really up until the recent past.